President Jacob Zuma should be the one person who should respect the rule of law. We have rule of law in South Africa that governs us. Once a constitutional court has decided that is it. It is what it is. We took the decision to put him through a disciplinary process, and that is what we have done. Are you saying should we not have acted as the ANC?
No.
Or as government? We have to follow the prescripts of our constitution. Should there be any threat of violence, our security forces are ready to deal with that, and we will not even mince our words when it comes to something like that.
Mr. President, I actually just want to pick up from right there where you just heard the breaking news. The Constitutional Court has finally ruled on this particular matter about your predecessor and whether or not he can make a turn to return to Parliament. Let's first speak about your reaction to the news.
Well, the Constitutional Court has ruled, and as I've often said, that's the highest court in the land, and we've given the judiciary the right to arbitrate disputes amongst us in terms of our constitution. So they have come out with a ruling, and I note that ruling, and that is what it is.
Noting the ruling is what you actually did in December. I, again, go back to conversations you had with journalists ahead of the formal launch of the Umkhonto Party. I asked you, former presidents are saying A, B, C, D, E. You said you'd note it. And look at where it's led to the ANC and where you are today. Should you have not dealt with that matter, particularly around former President Jacob Zuma, differently? Are there any regrets about that? We will not comment. Suddenly to commenting. Suddenly there is a question of suspension. Should this matter not have been handled differently by the ANC?
Because it was already clear in December when he publicly spoke that he violated the ANC constitution,
Yes.
and yet as leaders of the party, you waited until much later to start considering action against him.
Are you saying should we not have acted as the ANC?
No.
Or as government?
ANC.
No, obviously as the ANC.
Oh, no. As the ANC, I mean, obviously we have to follow the prescripts of our constitution. And the prescripts of our constitution that anybody who is a member must be given due process. There must be due process, and they must go through the various processes of hearings and all that, and representation. And so that is what we followed. So we followed our constitution to the letter, and we could not have done it any other way.
If I was an ANC member, I'd actually say, as Clement just pointed out, the constitution is quite clear. It took a really, really long time for the NEC to decide to actually start relying on its constitution. You went from, we will not comment on this, we will not discuss this,
Yes.
to having random remarks being made in public engagements.
Yes.
And that's what the clumsiness in how this was being handled actually took place, is in different leaders. In your Secretary General defending the actions of the ANC over the years in the name of an individual. It was those mishaps before the ANC remembered it's got a constitution and it's quite clear about what the violations are. So it's all good and well for you today to speak about the constitution and what you've done, but you looked at the constitution many months down the road.
Gee, I wish you could be an ANC member and insist on following the constitution. My God, you're so good at it. No. No. In the end, I mean, we followed the constitution, and we took the decisions that we took at the time. And some decisions, sometimes you'll find that maybe you should have taken a different decision. You should have done things incorrectly. But it is what it is. We took the decision to put him through a disciplinary process. And that is what we have done. And what we should really be found guilty for is to follow our constitution. And that I will concede that, yes, we are guilty for having followed the terms of our constitution.
You're guilty for having started late. Gwede Mantashe was on the show a couple of months ago. I asked him a similar question, and he said, we don't want to be disrupted by somebody else. We are focusing on elections. And I said, but you can chew and walk at the same time. Who says when you are taking action against a leader who has clearly violated the constitution, that somehow takes you off campaigning?
Gee, Clement and CD, I mean, I wish you could be ANC members, because you are really sticklers for the constitution.
Just last
we
question
would have real constitutionalists in the ANC with you. But we took the decision that we took. And as I said, some decisions should have been taken earlier, some should have been taken later, but in the end, we have taken the decision.
This is a very significant ruling coming out of the Constitutional Court. I saw the City Press reporting this weekend that there are concerns of threats of violence. There was a threat analysis that was compiled by the police, crime intelligence, SANDF, that state security agency, that there may be violence if certain parties or certain candidates are barred from contesting. How concerned are you about this particular ruling somehow instigating some kind of violence? I'm sure you've heard what the MK party members have been saying.
I'm not concerned about this instigating violence. President Jacob Zuma should be the one person who should respect the rule of law. We have rule of law in South Africa that governs us. Once a constitutional court has decided, that is it. And I mean, should there be any threat of violence, our security forces are ready to deal with that. And we will not even mince our words when it comes to something like that.
We are going to move on, but I've got just one last quick one.
Indeed.
And it goes back to what I asked earlier about the decisions and when you make the decisions. Mm-hmm. Society, by and large, watching the development, the formation even, the idea that a former president of the ANC could go out and urge people to vote against the ANC, will say the ANC bent over backwards for many years. It undermined the very tenets of democracy that it put in place in order to protect this individual. It's not a question of what happened recently. It's a question of the many years of his leadership. It's a question of even the politicization of what happened in 2021, even managing what happens to him at every turn. The ANC has considered the individual at the cost of the republic. What says you to the public that's watching saying, actually, you deserve everything that you're getting as the ANC because you engineered the path towards this?
Well, you know, TD, the ANC has seen a number of political parties springing up from people or by people who left the ANC. And it's not anything new. We've had many parties that were formed by a number of people. So, I mean, when you say we deserve this, I don't think that's an appropriate description, because in the end, people do what they want to do, and when they leave the party, recently we had a Secretary General who was expelled from the party, and he formed his own party. And now we've had a former president who has, before he was even through the process of the disciplinary process, gone to form his own party. So in the end, people choose what they want, but the ANC goes on. And we, in many ways, we even becoming stronger and stronger as people have left our family, and they think that by leaving our family we're going to be weakened, we're going to lose elections, and they are in for a surprise, because the members of the ANC family and its supporters are determined to ensure that the ANC continues leading this country.